In light of the new Regiments of Renown leak that just recently made its rounds on the subreddit, I figure now is as good a time as any to do a video on what some of the leaked Regiments of Renown could be, as well as my theories of other ones kind of coming in or what might happen. If you haven't seen that link, I will have that below in the comments. But for those of you who don't know, apparently there are voiceover files deep within the files of possible Regiment of Renown units for Skaven. Now, take this with a grain of salt because there's also files that are not used for the High Elves, such as the Revenants of Cain, the Spire Guard of Tor Ivris, and Size of Aisha. And we talked about these guys in our High Elf Regiment of Renown video that I'll link at the end of this one. But let's crack open the Heraldry and Uniforms book of 8th edition and talk a bit about some of the Regiments of Renown. Now, one thing I do want to address is the list ahead of time, as discovered by, I think it's Loki or Coeur de Pierre on the Steam community boards. This list isn't just Regiments of Renown. It's also got some just base units like Warplock Jezzails, Giant Rat Packs, Rattling Gun Teams, Wolf Rats, which are different than Giant Rat Packs, only slightly. And so maybe all, if not some of these, are coming alongside the Regiments of Renown. There's no real way to tell. But we'll be strictly talking about the Regiments of Renown in this video, as we've already discussed the base units in our army video almost a full year ago today. Kind of weird, right? Kind of weird that it's been so long. We've been together on this journey for so long. But it is exciting to see those units, so it is definitely worth mentioning. And I did notice the Rattling Gun Teams. I did notice the Warplock Jezzails. But again, I just want to focus on those regiments now. So let's just make our way down this list, shall we? We'll start with the Beastlings of Seepgore. Now, this is an obvious nod to the Hell Beast of Seepgore of Clan Gridis. Now, we've already have the Hell Beast in the game via a Norscan hunt. So having this entry be a Regiment of Renown Hell Beast wouldn't make a ton of sense. We might actually get that separately as its own Regiment of Renown, but what would make a lot of sense is if this was still one of Clan Moulder's creations, but rather than it being a Hellpit abomination, it's a mighty unit of rat ogres, which are disgusting and probably have funky nipples. Now, picture a Regiment of Renown unit of rat ogres that kind of plays a bit differently. Maybe these guards are more encased, or these ogres are more encased in armor, so they're a bit harder to kill. But my go-to would be something like Sunder Armor, and an increase to their leadership, as well as maybe an ability to cause terror, as these things are just kind of these hulking monstrosities. Just something to make rat ogres, an already pretty terrifying unit for their cost, even more horrible. But there's not much to go on with these guys other than just the chance to see them kind of be souped up rat ogres. Now, this could also be just wolf rats or giant rats, but a name like Beastlings, I think rat ogres just kind of sort of fits the bill. And there's other portions of the lore that show rat ogres is basically pulling lords on chariots. So it'd be really cool if the Beastlings of Seepgore were rat ogre chariots. Just because I think I've seen it like in 3 pictures. It's in the heraldry book under one of the clans, and it shows them like just being pulled by one of the rat ogres. And I think that, while I don't think that it's going to be the case here, I just think that it'd be a really cool thematic thing I wanted to tell you guys about. By the way, we'll jump over here to the next one, Blight Scab's Plague Pack. Now, these little guys are, however, from the Heraldry and Uniforms book. And let's get this little lore entry here. Blight Scab's Plague Pack are amongst Clan Septic's most disgusting warriors. Their fur is matted with contagions, and their skin is covered with boils and buboes. Blight Scab commands his regiment with hacking, phlegm-filled shouts, and he is so eager to spread disease in the name of the Horned Rat. He has been known to lead his regiment from the front. The Plague Pack are believed to have been responsible for the outbreak of bleeding eye rot that decimated the population of the Empire City of Nuln. And the picture of them kind of depicts what looks like a plague priest, Blight Scab himself, in lieu of an actual pack leader, but otherwise it looks just like a normal pack of clan rats. And this might be the case here. We might just see a lot of variations of this. And I can see these guys as having a basic poison attack, coupled with maybe with even kind of like a pestilent aura that could exude from them. They look like a little green cloud, just something a little bit different. But maybe, dare I say it, frenzy. I think that it'd be rad and make this unit of clan rats a little bit more like a unit of plague monks at a discounted rate. You don't get all the benefits of being Plague Monks, obviously, but you get some of the benefits, well, Plague Monks don't all have plague or poison attacks, but still you get that frenzy capability. I think that'd be kind of a really cool or interesting way. Another really different way of doing this is to acknowledge that Blight Scab is leading this, that he is a Plague Priest, and give him one or two maybe bound spells. That is an option that they could kind of flirt with. But there's a lot of different ways it can do some of these things, but let's just kind of move on here. So we have Clan Vulcan. This is important. V-U-L-K-N, Tail Slashers. And this is kind of a funky one because I'm not sure if Vulcan is a typo to Volcan, V-O-L-K-N, which is later in this list, and a clan we've talked about before, or something entirely made up by CA. Either way, Tail Slashers kind of leads me to believe that this might be a Death, Gutter, or Night Runner unit, as they are all trained to use weapons in their tails, such as like shurikens and daggers and scythes and all sorts of little ninja-y little like devices. But the real question is, how would I look at such a unit as a Regiment of Renown? I mean, they already have so many varieties, slingers and non-slingers, poison and non-poison. And with a name like Tail Slashers, I would really think of these as a more melee-centric unit. Maybe it's just simply the Shuriken Gutter Runners with poison and then Sunder Armor, so sort of like a Death Runner unit, but cheaper. Less combat efficiency, but the added benefit of range. Since there's not much to go on with this, this is a pretty heavy bit of speculation on my part and more wishful thinking, so I'd love to hear what you guys think these little ditties are going to be like. But I think that we're going to see this a lot with the Regiments of Renown for Skaven, is that they're going to be discount versions of the tier above them. So if the Clan Vulcan Tail Slashers are basically discount Death Runners, that leads us to believe that the Night Runners that we'll talk about soon are just discount Death Runner, the discount, it's Death, Gutter, Night in descending order. So if these are Gutter Runners that are discount Death Runners, then it leads me to believe that the other ones that we'll talk about later are Night Runners that are discount Gutter Runners. And I think that we might, again, see a lot of that stuff going. When we just talked about how maybe the Blight Scab's Plague Pack is a Clan Rat pack that's a discount Plague Monk. So I think that's going to be a very big repeating motif. With that being said, there's something we haven't talked much about, and it's the color of Skaven's fur. Well, it kind of sounds weird, but that's going to come up with a few of these units, but none are as huge as the Council Guard. And this is one of our units, of course, the Regiments of Renown. But the Grey Seers are marked, of course, for their horns and what have you, but the Council Guard are marked from birth due to the fact that they are albino Skaven. So think, a unit of kind of red armored Stormvermin that have completely white fur. And it's a pretty cool little contrast there. And I mean, I dig it. I mean, whoa. Calm down. I digress. The albino Skaven are then kind of trained ceaselessly in both war and obedience, and they make up the guardians of the Grey Seer Council. Now, obedience is sort of the key thing here, as they are meant to be incorruptible. Especially in a society like the Skaven, where manipulation, intrigue, and subterfuge are kind of chief among their guiding principles, along with just outright backstabbing. This ensures that no one can really control the Grey Seer Council with their kind of incorruptible bodyguard. Now, how would this look? This would obviously be a unit of Stormvermin Regiment of Renown, if that wasn't obvious, but what flavor? Most pictures portray Stormvermin with halberds, so it's easy to think that they'll have halberds. Really, it's the classic image of these guys, to be honest, and I'm going to stick with it for this unit. My assumption will be that the Council Guard will be a shield-wielding Stormvermin halberd unit with the Guardian ability. Since that seems to be really a flavor of the month that they've been doling out to every Regiment of Renown, even appending it to some of the Regiments of Renown from the 30th anniversary, so it makes a lot of sense to me. But I expect these guys to be used in a defensive manner, more so than the other Stormvermin unit we're about to talk about. Now, I really can't get over the aesthetics for these guys, but the Council Guard's mirror, I guess you could say, would be in the Death Vermin of Clan Rictus. And they have this kind of badass nickname too, but let's read this bit from the book. The Death Vermin, also known throughout the Under Empire as the Black Death, are the elite of Clan Rictus' formidable Stormvermin regiments, and perhaps the most proficient warriors in all Skavendom. They are utterly ruthless and have crushed their enemies in countless battles, much to the annoyance of the clan warlords. Cratch Doomclaw. Indeed, the Death Vermin pose a significant threat to Lord Doomclaw's own power base, and despite throwing them into hopeless battles on numerous occasions, they have returned victory every time, and returned victorious every time. Black Death, though, I mean, like, woof, holy shit, dude, like, what a name. That's like, for giant, oversized rats, I mean, that look like Splinter, that's a hell of a name. So Stormvermin already have black fur. So maybe these guys have matching black armor as well, sort of match that nifty kind of opposite to the albino guard. And as you've seen, the picture also depicts these guys with halberds, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that these little dudes won't be the halberd variant, but rather the sword and shield variant, or maybe even sword and sword variant, or sword and another hand weapon variant, which I think would be really cool. I mean, these guys, they've been thrown to all these battles. They're known under the under Empire as just these badasses. So maybe they've got AP and anti-infantry to give a nod to that kind of rad-tad fighting background they've got. Maybe a little Skaven version of Inspire, because they have this huge backstory to them. And it'd make a lot of sense too if these guys are known far and wide just as these absolute kick you in the nuts and take your lunch money badasses. But maybe, rather than inspire, they cause fear or terror to keep up that namesake of causing fear. It's going to be interesting to see how they do this. And like I said, I think we're going to see a lot of different variants of the same unit as Regiments of Renown, because they don't have a whole ton of variety. But no doubt they'll be disgusting in a Tretch campaign that already gives Stormvermin plenty of buffs. So I couldn't imagine these guys rolling alongside him. Switching gears here, though, a little bit into the Flint Rats. And this is another one of those pretty weird entries that could be anything. But I'm going to go out on a limb and assume, I go out on a lot of limbs, I got like 4 of them. But I'm going to assume it's a Regiment of Renown for the Warplock Jezzails, or maybe even a Rattling Gun team. But remember, these more than likely aren't all of the possible regiments, and the majority of the heraldry book has Regiments of Renown basic clan rats. So there's a lot of options for Creative Assembly to consider. Personally, I mean, if I was choosing Jezzail Regiments of Renown, I'd choose like Sizzik's Deadeyes from the End Times, and they have a pretty cool little backstory as they're led by a warlock engineer named Sizzik Warpeye. But they essentially used night goblins and dwarfs for like target practice, so ruthless badasses. And the emblem on their shields, the clan war symbol, kind of strikes fear into the hearts of dwarves, so they go ducking for cover. So maybe if those guys were in the game, I like the sound of that, and maybe their attacks knock down leadership or something like that. I mean, let's go on again, assuming that they were in the game. But the Flint Rats. Now, if this was a Regiment of Renown Warplock Jezzail, what would that mean? Well, I think the unit itself, if we're talking about the non-Regiment of Renown, will have a silver or bronze shields as far as range defense, because they have a giant shield in front of them. I think it's called other things throughout history have called it a pavis or pavis, P-A-V-I-S-E. But they would have that range defense, they would have magic damage and AP damage. So how could these dudes be different? For one, Sunder armor or just outright shield breaking would be cool. And we've seen that introduced with the Tomb King, so it'd be cool to see that being given to more units. Imagine these guys, plus a normal unit of Jezzails, being able to take down the most heavily armored shielded units without even a fucking problem. I mean, say goodbye to any lords on dragons. Holy hot covered shit. Now this brings up, though, since we're talking about large things like dragons, this brings up one of our first possible artillery pieces for the Skaven, the Great Claw of Besick. Now, there isn't any mention of a relatively well-known Plague Claw catapult in the lore, aside from the virulent batteries, which they were during the End Times. And even then, they were just even more poisonous versions of a normal Plague Claw catapult. Nothing overly crazy about them. But Clan Besick has a pretty interesting story. Clan Pestilence was responsible for 2 Skaven civil wars, as you guys know. And during that time, they destroyed a lot of lesser clans, absorbed a ton more, and converted a few others. Now, Besick was already living in just this absolute squalor, and I'd be missing an opportunity here if I didn't say they just were covered in complete rat shit. Now, this made them one step closer to worship amongst the Pestilent Brotherhood, so once joining the cause and drinking the pus-filled Kool-Aid, Besick became one of the most fearsome of pestilent clans. But they're also well known for being complete cowards, so they've kind of got that going for them. I'm not sure if that would mean that these guys suffer a penalty to their leadership innately because they're part of Clan Besick, but I think it's just using the name in recognition of the fact that this is another pestilent clan in the kind of same vein as Clan Pestilence. Now, as far as a Regiment of Renown for the play called Catapult, it's hard to really say. You know, it's already got a lot going for it. It's got magic damage, AP, anti-infantry, and a minus to leadership. So maybe this is a different kind of poison, that rather than doing minus to leadership, it maybe has the same effect as, let's just say, the Bless with Filth spell, knocking down a lot more abilities, or maybe it adds a flaming attacks in addition to being magic. Now, this next part's kind of a little bit of a pipe dream nut, but this is one I'm very interested to see how it works, and I feel like it's getting repetitive. I say it does armor sundering or shield breaking, so I'd like it to have something unique, like maybe leaving a plague cloud that does damage to units passing through it before it dissipates, so making it a bit more deadly as it fires into advancing troops or stays on, say, a static unit like a range unit. Only time will really tell for this one, because I think the plate cloth catapult already has so many like attributes attacked onto it, and maybe this one's just going to be anti-large versus anti-infantry. It's kind of hit or miss with my ideas on this one. But another interesting Regiment of Renown, and this could just simply be another unit of clan rats with maybe spears or shields or whatnot, but is Hullscurries Chosen. Now, Hullscurry is the warlord of Clan Mange. They all are what's called piebald. Just think like cows. Rather than being black and white, they're all brown and white. Furred Skaven, that is. And there's not a lot to go on with Clan Mange, aside from their unique look and otherwise kind of relatively high loyalty for a Skaven clan, that is. They're considered one of the mutinous clan. They are mutants. And they do have access to a bit better armor than the normal Thrall clan, so maybe that would kind of play into this. So that leads us to how they might look as a Regiment of Renown. And maybe this is just simply another unit of clan rats with higher defense, higher leadership, a bit more of a mainstay in the army. And one thing I think we'll see, like I was saying with the Skaven Regiment of Renown, is again, multiple units in different flavors, since there's so much variety of one unit, and since the options for Regiment of Renown are rather limited from the lore. So I think that, with that being said, I just see that this is another simple clan rat. Another thought that it could be a weapons team, since it's such an innocuous name, but I'll let you guys kind of ruminate that, and you guys can let me know what you think. We'll pull over to another of one of the crazier ones, the Scabbers Elders of the Pox. And there's no real link to any clan or lore for this one. Scabbers is used to describe any number of pestilent things in lore, from Skaven to Nurgle. So I'm going to go with a simple suggestion of a Plague Monk unit. And I'm not going to say Plague Censer Bearers, and you'll find out soon. But I think this is it's a pretty simple entry here, and I think the next two are going to be very similar, just kind of one wham bam, thank you ma'am, quick entries. But as far as a Regiment of Renown variation of a Plague Monk, I think the obvious choice would be making them just have AP. Maybe even giving them a poison akin to Blessing of Filth, or maybe even, again, this is kind of a little bit off of Scabbers up top there, but I'm sorry, not Scabbers. What's our bro? Blight Scab. But maybe if he just had a bound spell for some version of any of the lore of plague abilities for these guys. I like to just say, it's hard to, I say Blessing of Filth because it's kind of easy and kind of an easy go-to, but it's used once or twice, maybe during the battle, as a bound spell. And we've seen a few other Regiments of Renown have bound spells, like the Summoners of Rage. So I'd love to see that kind of replicated over to our furry little disgusting chittering creature friends here. But we'll just keep kind of trudging on down our list to the gaseous ones. Another really kind of sort of cryptic and overly simple name, and nothing in the lore or overly clever from my part I could give you guys on this one. I'm going to say that these are either Poison Wind Globa Deers or Death Globe Bombardiers, and that's been pretty much the consensus across the subreddit post of what people think that this is going to be, and it makes a lot of sense to me as well. Now, what's interesting is that there's plenty of options in the lore to choose from for other more renowned units of both of the ones we just talked about. There's the Vatbacks during the end times. And these dudes were actually employed by Queek Headtaker and proficient in clearing out the tunnels of dwarf holds. So, just crack teams of Poison Wind Globa Deers hopped up on Tide Pods and a good time. So, It's interesting that they went with the gaseous ones, which I have no idea what the fuck it means. So maybe these guys are anti-infantry and cause centering armor as the globes kind of boil away armor and such on top of their intrinsic AP. But some of the more CA creative regiments of renown leave a lot to be speculated about because the others have a basing in lore, or at least some mention of what makes them famous. At this point, I'm guessing what could be fun for Regiment of Renown, that unit type. So please speculate with me so I don't seem like a fucking crazy person. Get involved in the comments and tell me what you think these disgusting pus-filled shitheads are going to be like. That kind of puts us over to our next one on the list again, the Needless Less. Now again, a very non-descriptive name, but by the Needless Less portion of the name, I'm going to guess that there's some sort of Skaven Slave. Now we've seen expendable units get Regiment of Renown variants in, say, the Tithe, and Skaven Slaves make up a large part of not only the Skaven lore, but their flavor when it comes to playing them in both tabletop and Total War. So what would a Skaven Slave look like, or a Regiment of Renown Skaven Slave? Maybe a higher unit count, perhaps poison, higher leadership, shields. It's hard to say. But I look at the Tithe, and what do they have going for them? Increased unit count above normal zombies, higher armor, health, speed, attack, and a 15% physical resistance. So maybe that's what we'll get with these guys, a stockier version of slaves that are higher in number, and something kind of super basic but flavorful. Maybe this is the very first stop on our list of regiments renowns from the campaign, and this being not just a kind of a real basic souped up version of Skaven Slaves. Maybe you get this at rank 3, so it's something to write home about, but it's just kind of a better version of Skaven Slave with maybe like a 50 or 100 point increase in cost if we're talking about the multiplayer cost. But again, something super basic. But thank God we're back to another unit that's actually in a book. This isn't all baseless speculation. The Scurry Stabbers are straight out of Clan Treecheric's entry. The Scurry Stabbers are one of Clan Treecheric's most murderous claw packs, and they have slain more, many more, of their own clanmates than the enemy. In fact, it has been several years since they've killed anything not from Clan Treecheric. Their current claw leader is Gristle Twitch Slice, an imposing figure who has remained in command of the Scurry Stabbers for an impressive 3 days. If he can make it to 4, he will have broken the service record set by Sneer Throckstar over 20 years ago. Now, of course, this picture depicts clan rats with more Night Runner-esque weapons. In fact, Clan Treecheric itself is equipped with more Night Runner and has more subterfuge about it. They showcase some assassins on their little clan page. So, rather than assuming there'll be another Clan Rat Regiment of Renown, I'm going to go out on a limb. I think this is the third limb I've gone on now, and say that there's simply going to be the Night Runner Regiment of Renown. We talked about the Gutter Runner Regiment of Renown, how that's probably going to be a discount Death Runner. But since the Night Runners are the entry level of the Runner sect of Skaven, I think we have need for a dedicated Regiment of Renown for them. And I actually think these guys would be pretty simple as a regiment. Put stock on them, give them anti-infantry or even AP on their melee attacks, and maybe some higher armor to represent them having been around the block a couple times, you know? But a more true melee-centric version of the Night Runner, especially one that can sneak up a bit better, just so you know, get you right in the Skaven pooper. Anyway, moving on to our last Regiment Renown on this list, Vulcan's Firetails, or Vulcan Firetails. That's V-O-L-K-N, as opposed to the V-U-L-K-N we talked about earlier. Now, Clan Vulcan we've talked a bit about earlier, but they're the red-furred rats that hang out closer to the Fire Mountain and the tumultuous kind of lava-filled caverns of that network of caves. And as such, this clan is responsible for a great deal of pyromaniacs, as stated in the Heraldry book. So it makes a lot of sense if the Firetails were simply a Regiment of Renown warp fire thrower unit. Now, we've seen this happen with the Dwarfs and their Iron Drakes / Skulder Guard, so we have somewhat of an idea of how Creative Assembly approaches such units. Skulder Guard drop their quote-unquote burnt special rule from the Flamethrower and instead have AP. I think that would kind of be the case here with the Warp Fire Throwers from Vulcan. Now, the Skulder Guard does drop the flaming attack characteristic from their Flamethrower, which I think is a bug. That sounds stupid. So these guys would definitely retain that, if not also magic attacks in addition, because Warp Fire Throwers are not just Flamethrowers, they're Warp Fire. Now, maybe even a buff to their resilience, as they're, you know, such insane pyromaniacs that their skin is a little tougher after being burned up and scarred to an indiscernible matted glob of fur. God, it up. Oh, but this video ended up being a lot longer than I had originally intended. This concludes the leaked, quote-unquote, list of voiceovers for the units that were data mined. Well, data mined seems like a stretch there, but please do keep in mind that some of these units might not make it, and they might be way off target from what I've said, so everything should be more fun than fact, than fur than fact. I mean, that's a bad joke at this point. But I mean, we've taken a look at some 13 Regiments of Renown, and that kind of plays in line with both Skaven loving the number 13, so them having 13 Regiments of Renown makes a lot of sense to me. But I did mention I would like to see some units not on this list. So I'll go very briefly into them. We won't do a huge entry, but the Black Arc Battery was a Regiment of Renown Warp Lightning Cannon led by a Warlock Engineer Besick when Queek was retaking Carrick 8 Peaks. So I'd love to kind of see that included. I did mention the possibility of an alternate unit for the Plague Center Bearers. So I'd like to see the Bearers of Creeping Death, not at all because I'm a huge Metallica fan, but which would be kind of filled with plague monks that are already doomed to die, attacking with one of the most disgusting and deadly plagues of the entirety of the old world, the Creeping Death. So I'd definitely see these guys as like frenzied with a much different, far more potent plague attached to their sensors. But lastly, there are a ton of Regiment of Renown for Storm Fiends, so I'd simply like to see just the unit itself added to the game as another monstrous unit option for the Skaven. They're so thematic for the Skaven and make up such a huge portion of the latter part of the lore that you can't go wrong with just these horrible twisted ass abominations. Good God. I'm getting goose tits just thinking about them. That's the saying, right? Goose tits. Sticking with it. Either way, guys, please comment below and let me know what your thoughts are on the leaked list, as well as what you think would make for some really good Regiments of Renown. You know, always love hearing from y'all as to what you can come up with this from the lore. But as always, guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and please like the video if you enjoyed my blabbering on and on for like 30 some odd fucking minutes. But have a good one and take care.